Hey, good evening, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Wednesday Night Live with me, Mike Avery, here. I almost said here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. I'm not. I'm in my home studio, my home office, which is where we've done most of the Wednesday Night Lives lately. Keep in mind, though, coming up on September 18th, we're going to do a Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. Would love to see you there. 989-343-0892 for reservations. 989-343-0892 for reservations. Let's see who's along with us tonight. Larry, how did you get in there? You said the time starts. I don't even know how you can make a comment before I go live. I don't understand that. Cliff, nice to have you along with us. Craig Plowman. Craig and his wife, Michelle, will be joining us in West Branch for that Wednesday Night Live. Bernie, always a pleasure. Linda, why don't you make the long drive up from Ann Arbor and come and see us? Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer. Johnny, this week's Ask Avery question deals with, why do I call you the Bear Whisperer? Cliff, still no power in Royal Oak. I'm sorry to hear that, Cliff. My daughter is in Birmingham, and their power came back on at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Our guest who's about to join me is about ready for her power to go back on too. That was a storm, wasn't it? Holy cow. When it's that hot and that muggy and there's that much energy stored up in the air, you know it's just got to bust wide open. And it did. Mike, it was wonderful to see you, Mike, at the golf outing up in West Branch. We will do another one. Hey, Michelle there. How are you? Mike Critchfield, always a pleasure, my friend. And again, Larry, how did you get in there early and leave a comment? I don't get it. Scott, I do not recognize your name. Thank you for being along with us. I appreciate you joining us. Sean Hodges, who owns an Angler Quest, said, man, did Brad hit a home run with that prototype? It is beautiful. I posted video and one still picture of the new Angler Quest QUEST prototype. It was at Linwood Beach today. I went up there, met Brad. We shot some video. I'm going to do a full scale video, not really a review, just a look at it coming up. But you can go to my Instagram feed or my Facebook page and you can see that content. Jeff says it's stormy downstate tonight again, Jeff. Didn't you guys get enough of it last night? Hey, Dan, I'm glad to have you along with us. Dan, you're like the TikTok king. I see you all over the place. Aaron, good evening. How are you? Kimmy, nice to have you along with us. Those are pretty flowers behind you. John, thanks for joining us. Jeff, always a pleasure. Cap, how are you tonight? She says, I know I have it on my bucket list. It's only a 2-hour drive. Linda, it's 2 hours. I would tell you, do like I do. Just light a cigar, put on an audiobook, and enjoy the drive. You probably don't smoke cigars. I'm so glad you're here, Dan. Hello, Jen. You're going to be joining us as well. Bruce, thank you. Bob. Jerry missed this morning because he was cutting up trees in Port Hope. There was a lot of cutting up trees across the state today. Harry Smith, a guy I've known since probably 1970. Let me answer this real quick. This is actually Brad Dupuy is texting me. I just told him reminded him I was doing Wednesday Night Live. Maybe he'll come over and jump on with us. Scott Hand. Scott, who had I don't want to get into it too much, but Scott had a very instrumental role in making the new Angler Quest QUEST happen. Well, I'm glad you kept your power, Mike. Mitchell, good evening. Oh, no. One of the big maple trees in the front yard. Those maple trees, Kimmy, were well over 100 years old. Didn't hit the house, did it? What about Mom? None of the trees back there, I hope, or I would have heard about it. I hope, man. Oh, Scott, I'm so sorry to hear that. So sorry to hear that. I'm going to say, Brad, come join us. Hey, Jim, Jim Felgenauer, nice to have you along with us. It has been a while. Jim, I did get your email today. Thank you for that. That makes complete sense, and it does answer my question. I guess if I have a tree question, which in this case was why are the maples turning red so early this year, I should have gone right to the master arborist himself, Jim Felgenauer. Dan, good evening. Tony, my fellow skinny water guy. Tony, I got to tell you something. My friend Randy snuck into our skinny water 2 days ago and he got fish. I'm not real happy because he didn't check with me. Did he check with you? Mike, good evening. Mike Hampton. I'm going to see Mike Hampton tomorrow. Mike's tire sales in Caucaulin. I got a new truck. Not that my old truck, I loved my old truck, the ZR2, but I drive a lot of my miles and the lease was toast. So I had to get a new truck. I didn't want to go the full ZR2 route. I don't need a ZR2. So I got a Trail Boss from Garber Chevrolet, the guys at Garber Chevy. I'm taking it over to Mike Hampton tomorrow morning to get bigger tires on it. Hopefully, Mike, we don't have to do that little lift on the front to fit the 34s. But anyway, I'll see Mike in the morning. Scott, good evening. How are you? Coming up in just a few minutes, a special guest tonight. You know her, you love her. Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC. Amy is so knowledgeable, so personable, and she does such a great job. She's standing by in the wings. I'll go to her in just a minute. All right, Johnny, have a good night. Don't go out and bait now. You're going to get stuck in the woods out there, and there's wolves out there and bears, and they'll be scared. You'll be scared, and they'll eat you. And I know you don't like to go out in the woods after dark because there's bad things that happen out there with the wildlife and stuff. Johnny, I'm just kidding you. John Wild, good evening. Jim, north of Gladwin, no power for 28 hours now and counting. It's time for it to come back. Fall perch fishing. Tim, I'm hearing decent reports, believe it or not, from Saginaw Bay. There's two hot spots I've heard of, but I don't want to give them up because out of respect for the people who told me. But if you check around, call Linwood Beach Marina, 989-697-4415, and they can tell you where to start. Okay, Larry says, I'm pretty sure when you set it up, it says you should be live then. Like maybe some other click to set it up normally would say waiting until 7. I want to check into that, Larry, because I don't know anything about it. Jeff is listening to the wonderful sound of generators today. Good evening, Randy. Bernie, we'd love to have you along next time. Ed Bolanowski. Kathy doesn't have any power either. Dan. Linda, I knew you were my kind of woman. No power in Auburn yet. Wow. What do I think of the lower muzzleloader season? You know what? I'm going to hold off on that one. I'm not going to answer that one. Jerry says, couldn't miss Amy. All right, I got a bunch of questions here that we're going to get to. I don't mean to leave you hanging, but this one right here gets my attention. When Dave says, what do you think about the lower muzzleloader season? Use any gun, kind of ruin the hunting season. This seems like a good time to bring in our friend Amy Trotter of MUCC, Executive Director. She joins me about once a quarter to come in and shoot the breeze, and she has graciously agreed to join us once again. Amy, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Very well. Thank you.
And you don't have power at your house either, do you?
No, I had to come into the office or stay at the office. I'm going on 11 hours now here. So, but yeah, we haven't had power for a couple days now, and it's been rough.
Well, I hope for your sake and for everybody, power comes back. I mean, we don't realize how much we need electricity till it's gone, but let's get right into the questions. Dave brings up a question. He asked me what I think of the lower muzzleloader season. I'm not going to ask you that specific of a question, Amy, but does MUCC have any thoughts on the changes in deer hunting for this fall or the lack of changes based on the DMI, the Deer Management Initiative groups?
Actually, one thing, I was on the Lower Peninsula Deer Management Initiative group, and we had talked actually in a small group about bringing back traditional muzzleloader season. And so that was a discussion that we had in the DMI. And the theory was, and maybe, maybe there's not as much data to support this theory, but the theory is that if we went back to a traditional muzzleloader season and actually targeted bucks or put less pressure on bucks in theory, then maybe more people would be incentivized to actually take a doe in the late doe season, in the archery season, in all of those things. If we made the muzzleloader season really the only opportunity for a buck during that time frame. So that was kind of the theory of bringing back that traditional muzzleloader season. I know there's some desire out there, but unfortunately, the NRC stuck with what we've had, which is really to kind of streamline that for Southern Michigan and allow just really an extension of gun season. So again, is there going to be harm to the resource? Probably not, but it definitely does change sort of how people hunt and the kind of pressure that the deer are experiencing during that time.
As a member of one of the deer management initiative groups, knowing how much work and time you all put into those, are you disappointed that the NRC seemed to just, I'm going to, my words, not yours, ignore all your suggestions?
Well, certainly there, MUCC didn't even agree maybe with all the suggestions in the deer management initiative, but it was really did feel like they took a look at things, but they ultimately went in different directions. Sometimes maybe there was a good reason for that. MUCC has concerns about opening up baiting, and that was one of the proposals that came out of the deer management initiative. On other things, though, I wish we would have been able to have a little bit more time actually within the deer management initiative itself to maybe flush out some of the conversations that the commissioners were having before we had to go right into the regulation cycle. So all in all, I think that if the deer management initiative would have had more time before we had to get into the regulation cycle, maybe some of that would have been worked out a little bit better, and maybe it could have been something that the NRC could have adopted. We do need to go to the legislature for a couple things, so I still think that there's more work to be done, and I think the commission realizes that maybe there's definitely never one bite at the apple, if you will.
Hmm. Um, Amy, a fresh question from my buddy Scott Hand. Did they finalize the law about the mentored hunt for folks like Blake? That's his grandson, Blake, who has special needs. Scott, I guess I thought that was a done deal. Amy?
So the governor did sign that law back in July,
Yeah.
but we
Okay.
do need to make sure that the hunting regulations match what is now state law. So that process is still underway at the NRC. They've had an order for just some minor tweaks in the wildlife conservation order, and that was up for information in August, and we believe that will be acted on in September to finalize that and put a bow on it.
Excellent. Good evening, Dan. Jerry, nice to have you along with us. John, thanks for joining us. Martin, Doug Ward, Cap and a hand, charting out of Ludington. Dead tired, but so fun. Love the new Kingfisher. Just got the power back on over there. Good fishing to you. Randall, Jerry says, good evening, Amy. Randy, I am Murray. I was just talking about you going into our skinny water, my water, and Tony's water, and poaching our fish. Dan, okay, Amy, you're going to like this. Dan Featherstone is a new member of MUCC as of yesterday.
I actually heard that in the office because whenever we see a name that we recognize come across the desk, we actually talked about it in the office. So thank you, Dan. Welcome. It was great working with you and the DMI as well.
Dan, my only question is, what took you so long? Why weren't you a member before? Amy, I was going to save this till the end, but while we're talking about it, I know you guys are putting a big membership drive on right now. What's the purpose other than to make yourself feel good and to get as many members if you can? What's the real reason to try to boost the membership levels?
Well, we really, in the past, we were 100,000 strong. And, again, I wasn't around back then to know kind of whether that was fuzzy math or real paid members. But we really do need to grow the ranks of the conservation community to have a strong voice in Lansing and to have a financially stable organization working on their behalf. So it is about revenue. It is about stabilizing our budget and growing and make sure that we can do more with more and not kind of always being faced with trying to do more with less. We have a small team as it is, but certainly having a stable and growing membership allows us to, grow that team and provide more services for the hunters, anglers, and trappers here in Michigan.
And how do we join?
Go to our website, www.mucc.org, and you can hit the join button right there.
Thank you, Amy, for that comment from Tom. It said it's storming in East Texas. You Michigan folks don't know how good you have it. You have an outdoor show with Mike Avery and an awesome outdoor heritage. Tom, I'll send you your $5 later. Question from Linda for you, Amy. Linda was watching Michigan Outdoors last week. There was a segment regarding the new deer regulation. Jimmy asked Chad Stewart if the NRC gave any consideration. Well, I think we just answered that. Chad's answer was a bit evasive, and he pretty much said, no, I found that disappointing. Again, I'll just go back. Were you disappointed that the NRC? I'm going to give you a broader question, Amy. I'm going to get rid of this one right here. I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you, MUCC, happy with the current NRC? And is it to the point that we need to look at a different way of doing things?
Oh, yeah, we don't need to pull any punches on that.
No, we're friends. We can talk
Absolutely.
like this.
So, the Natural Resources Commission in its current form, and not speaking about the individuals or the decisions they've made, but this form of governance is something that MUCC has stood by, and we believe it will stand the test of time. It's already been around and in place for more than 100 years now. We have had this style of governance where it's a bipartisan commission overseeing certain aspects of the department, because we believe it is important to share those decisions and not invest 100% of decision making authority into a DNR director who is now political appointee of the governor, single person, or the alternative being 148 elected officials in the legislature, which that is unwieldy. And sometimes they just forget to do things, sometimes they run out of time spinning their wheels, and so we don't want to leave critical decisions that need action to the kind of the whims of the politics of the day, or again, a single person's perspective that's a political appointee. So again, regardless of who sits on the commission and the decisions they've made recently, I do believe it is the best style of governance. And do we need to get people that are strong hunters, anglers, and trappers and understand conservation on the commission? Absolutely. And we are always open to, hearing from people that are interested in being on, understanding what we think should, the kinds of people that should be on the commission. And those are things that we're going to be carrying forward to the governor and to the Senate in their advice and consent hearings as well.
Does MUCC have any type of input or sway or chops in the decision on who gets on the NRC?
We certainly have a good dialogue with the appointments person on the governor's staff. We constantly talk about actually the Michigan Wildlife Council appointments as well. And there's 3 open vacancies there that we really need to work to fill. If there are people who are interested in kind of overseeing, again, that's a campaign for marketing, not for those of us in the hunting and fishing community, but to make sure that those people who don't do those things understand the value of hunting, fishing, and trapping here to our state. And so we do need really good people on that Michigan Wildlife Council and also on the commission. So we do talk to the governor's office about those appointments. Sometimes I say, hey, if you want me to, vet someone for you or get to know them to see if they'd be a good fit, I'd be happy to do that. But we also, do from time to time, feed them people that might be interested, especially for that wildlife council, because that's one of the requirements in law.
I love the Wildlife Council. I think they're doing a great job. Jim Felgenauer, a guy who knows a little bit about inside baseball, conservation politics. Amy is more diplomatic than I would be. She does a great job. Amy, I think everybody agrees you do a great job. I've talked to, I mean, you can't be in a role that you are as long as you have and not make somebody mad, but you're the type of person that has the ability to bring people together and rally around positive things. So I give you much credit for that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Jeremy, okay, I'm gonna get away from the deer baiting questions and such. Is the Liberty Hunt doe only now? Not until 2025, Ross, correct, Amy?
That is correct. Yeah, they did implement that, but it won't go into effect until 2025. I do believe they are taking a look at maybe not the youth component of the Liberty Hunt, but the independence hunt and those hunters with disabilities who hunt during the Liberty Hunt. I think they are going to take a look at that, but yet it remains to be seen. They haven't taken action on that yet.
Craig, to your question, I say, yeah, there was a difference between the expectations of the people on the DMI and what was going to happen. I wasn't on it personally, but I've talked to a lot of people. Scott Hand, how many new MUCC members signed up at the golf outing? I don't know the answer to that, Amy. I know that there were some people who did sign up and others who signed up after the fact. But the last time I saw you was at the golf outing. We talked on the radio show since then, but we haven't done one of these. Wasn't that a fun event? And we raised some money.
It really was a fun event. It was such a good crowd, a packed house. I got to be, out there on the eighth hole and got to talk to every single person. So it's rare that I get a chance to talk to every person at an event, but it was great. We had beautiful weather that held out for the day and really good food too.
And we'll do it again next year, won't we?
Definitely.
All right, let me get some of the power in numbers. That's a good way of putting it, Jerry. Power in numbers. Mad Jack is late, but you're here. That's all we need. Chris, who lives in Kansas, says he needs to renew his MUCC membership. That's wonderful, Chris. You don't have to be a Michigan resident to do that, do you?
Correct.
Dan says, well, we just talked about that, Dan. And because I had some off the record comments when people too saying I was extremely frustrated with the NRC and let's do something else. And I was convinced by those people that even though it's not working as smoothly as possible right now, that it is the best way to go. So you're not going to get, and Amy, I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think, Dan, that you're going to get MUCC involved in dissolving the NRC, Amy.
Not
No,
at this time. And I
no.
mean, certainly reform, I think we're open to. We are taking a look at what other states do, because some of their commission models are broken as well. And so this is a problem that we're seeing across the states of the nation that have commissions, but sometimes the alternative is no better either. So we're trying to learn again from other states too about what kind of improvements we might need to actually improve the model here in Michigan.
And I forgot the guy's name, but I just deleted a comment. I'll just, folks watching this, I don't put up with crap on here. If you're going to be mean, vile, perverted, weird, you go somewhere else. This isn't the place for it. Okay. Ross, I think we just answered that. Please ask Amy, is the Liberty Hunt doe only? Same next year, Amy, right? 2025.
That's the plan as of now.
Linda's agreeing with you. Well said, Amy. We always get a lot of well said Amy's. Hey, listen, we're eating up time here. Let me go to a couple other questions, Amy. The lawsuit that you guys, MUCC, filed over the coyote hunting decision. Give us a quick recap and the backstory and where do we stand on that?
Right. The DNR put forward a wildlife conservation order, as they always do, and one of the items on that order was to shorten the year-round coyote season that we've had now since about 2016, to close the season in that April to June timeframe, basically when pups are being reared by coyotes. MUCC opposed that decision. We support year-round coyote hunting because we believe that is a great time to actually manage coyotes on private property, to manage, them as a predator to deer, because that is when deer are also having fawns. So we believed it was important to address that. When the commission voted on that back in March, you have 21 days to decide to take action. So both MUCC and the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association have filed an appeal of that decision to try to restore year-round coyote hunting. So we filed that appeal. That basically got the administrative record of that decision in our hands. And now we're working with our legal team on writing a brief, and we should actually be filing that in the next couple weeks. So then it will be a lot of paperwork trading where, the attorney general who represents the Natural Resources Commission will file a reply, we'll file a reply to that. So it's kind of a boring process and very administrative, but we are making way in getting our legal brief filed. And, we believe we have a good shot, or else we wouldn't have taken this shot.
Sure, sure. Question from Ed Bolanowski. Interesting. Who do we contact to talk about sponsoring kids to the summer camp, to the youth camp?
Shannon Stover is our camp director, and she has just returned now back to the office after being down at camp the full year. But we have sponsors from all over the state. A lot of our MUCC affiliate clubs sponsor kids to go to camp, and we think it's a great way to get kids outdoors, and especially if they wouldn't have a opportunity otherwise.
Jeremy, checking in from the U. What do you think, Amy, of the UP getting their own NRC? He says there's been talk about that lately. I don't know if that talk is actually anything other than just water cooler comments, but any thoughts on that, Amy?
There actually has been legislative bills introduced, but they haven't really gone anywhere at this point. So I don't really think that has legs this legislative session. There is some concern from those of us, especially, we represent a statewide organization. Those wildlife are held in public trust for all the citizens of Michigan. And so, having a different body decide on wildlife that may be different or inconsistent in the lower from the upper peninsula, or treating them as two separate populations, there's definitely pros and cons to that approach. So we don't have a position on the bills, but they haven't really had a hearing yet either.
Amy, more kudos for you. Larry at Ramit Homesteading says MUCC should be happy to have Amy. So smart and on the ball. Everybody loves you, Amy.
Thanks.
Is your mom on tonight? She's going to be happy to hear that.
She is.
Oh, what's up with Sandhill? Well, we don't have a Sandhill crane season, but we do have a goose season coming up soon, but we don't have something else, do we?
No, goose opener starts September 1. Early teal season starts September 1. And so I hope anyone who likes to hunt birds takes advantage of that right away. It's a great opportunity. It's warm, hopefully not too warm. But you know what I always let everybody know at my annual Labor Day reminder is that I wish luck to all the other 42 states who get to hunt doves this weekend, and they have their dove opener coming up. So, unfortunately, that's not Michigan, but all the other states, we wish you the best.
Dove season isn't even on the radar screen, right? I mean, we had one, we lost it. We're moving on to other things, is what I feel.
At this point, it's in the legislative hands, and it's not looking likely that that would really go anywhere. And even if it did move through the legislative process, it would probably be subject to referendum and end up on a ballot again, just like in '06.
Yeah. Uncle Johnny, how are you, buddy? Nice to have you along with us. Mike says NRC shoot does 25. How disrespect. Mike, listen, there's a lot of people right now who are not happy with the NRC. Good evening, Patrick. How are you? Larry he did a Google search on the link to join MUCC. It's very easy. Go to mucc.org and click on the join button. Right, Amy? Isn't there a button in the upper right that says join?
Absolutely. Yep.
Tim, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Jim, I think we just answered that question. Oh, Brad Dupuy, Mr. Angler Quest. Brad, stick around because we're going to talk about you. I just posted video of your new prototype. Brad says he was disappointed in hearing that the independence hunt is does only. Interesting, Brad. I had Chad Stewart of the DNR. I recorded that show today for this weekend's air. Chad actually said, don't be surprised if this issue gets revisited. Amy, any thoughts on that?
Really do think they need to take a look at the hunters with disabilities and those with a hunt from a standing vehicle permit, giving them a little more opportunity. Again, MUCC didn't have a position on the youth hunt per se. I know we have members probably on both sides of that issue, but on this one, it's such a small population, and I really want to get them a deer. So I don't care what kind of deer it is for those hunters with disabilities. So I agree. I was disappointed. They had the chance to amend it and they chose not to. It really was not something that I guess expected to go through that way.
Linda says Amy's team is doing an awesome job. You need to increase your donations. Fun fact: you can make a donation to MUCC above and beyond the dues, and if you do, you'll get a little note from Amy Trotter saying thank you for your support. Won't you, Amy? Because I've got one.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, you can email Shannon. This is to sponsor a kid for youth camp. S
Let's see.
Stover at mucc.org. S Stover at mucc.org. Dan says he just joined. Excellent. Look at
Thank
that
you.
comment.
And that's a picture of my daughter too.
Oh, how nice is that? Okay. Honestly, we've got some good questions, but I want to keep things moving along, and I don't want to get too mired down into the weeds. Amy, Justin says Bear Forum. Anything on that at all?
The Bear Forum just happened, as did the annual Fur Takers group meeting as well. The Bear Forum, I think there was a lot of talk about, some different new opportunities in the woods. There's an archery only season that has been floated. I think some of the groups were still divided on that, or maybe had some more questions. There is a discussion about being able to put up tree stands earlier as well. So again, no decisions were necessarily made at the Bear Forum, but there were a lot of good issues talked about and, might be considered for the next regulation cycle.
mucc.org/join. Justin Tomei, who is an MUCC staffer and a scratch golfer, says he'd like to remind everyone that if you have a policy position you would like MUCC to adopt, any member can propose a resolution. You talk about grassroots and being able to get something done, Amy. Honestly, I think this is probably one of the biggest things that draws me to MUCC is members can actually make a difference.
Absolutely. And we truly are a grassroots organization. Justin and I don't sit here in Lansing deciding what to take up, what to work on, or what position to take. It truly is our members that shape that policy positions that we take. Sometimes, on a lot of the deer stuff, even we're really 50-50. Our membership is split. And so we might not take a position on every single issue under the sun because we don't have a clear super majority, which is what is required for us to go lobby on an issue. But we always tell our members where those decisions are happening, when they're coming up, what the decision is, how to contact those individuals. So, whether we have a policy on the issue or not, we're going to tell you and remind you when those NRC meetings are happening, when those legislative hearings are happening, and how you can engage. Even if you disagree with us, we're going to let you know and keep that communication flowing because it is important, just really for good civic engagement to have hunters and anglers and trappers engaged in that process.
Uncle Johnny says, so impressed by how knowledgeable Amy is, upfront, honest about the questions presented to her. John, I don't think you were on the line yet. When I asked her about her thoughts on the NRC, she choked for just a millisecond. You'd have to know her well to see it. And she did silently curse at me under her breath. But publicly, she did do a good job and not let on. Oh, Ed says, as a disabled hunter, Ed Moore, as a disabled hunter, I'm mad at MUCC. Ed, you can't make a statement like that without following up. Good evening, James. How are you? Jim Price, who was with us at the golf outing. I encourage everyone to become an MUCC member. Don't like something, write a resolution and change the law, right, Amy?
Yeah, and Jim would know. He has written many resolutions. He's one of the people single-handedly that wrote a lot of our policy on increasing the fines for poachers. So, he is responsible for us working on that a lot in the last 10 years.
Justin says, "Oh yeah, he's just like Tiger Woods in a lot of ways." I'm telling you, you see Justin swing golf club, and it's like Tiger in his prime. Okay, Amy. I don't want to take up too much of your night because I know you got a lot of things going on at home with the power out and everything. Let me take it. This may be too specific. Hillsdale County, Amy, do you know why the DNR didn't approve more butchers or markets in southern Michigan to take deer and sportsmen against hunger? This is an interesting question.
I guess I'm not familiar specifically with the location, but those deer processors have to be willing participants. So that's part of the problem is that a lot of our deer processors are small businesses. They might not even be full-time businesses. There are some regulations that some deer processors, might be reticent to follow that would allow them entry into the Michigan Sportsman Against Hunger program. There's some, MDARD, Department of Agriculture kinds of inspections required. So there might be some sort of I guess regulations in place that might be a reason why a processor wouldn't want to get in. But I think we would take anyone that's willing to jump through those hoops to get them in the fold. The problem too with Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger, which we are working actively to address, is that those processors also don't get paid the full freight of the work that they do from that program. So, we don't want them to have to subsidize the entire program of donating deer to the hungry. We want to make sure we're compensating them through the Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger program. But here to date, that program has only run on the donations that people are giving at the time they buy their licenses. So what we've done is worked with the legislature to actually infuse that program with a lot more funding so that they can get refrigerated trucks out there during the summer crop damage shooting seasons, so we can take advantage of some of those deer being shot in the summer, help out a farmer and help out the hungry at the same time. So there's about a $500,000 new money that has been infused into the Sportsmen Against Hunger program in order to enhance that program. And we're always looking for ways. We didn't get all the money that we asked for, so we're going to keep going back to the legislature as well to see if we can develop and grow that sustainable funding source.
Edgar, thank you for following up. I appreciate this. Ed's mad at MUCC because of the lack of wheelchair accessories on the trails. Ed, what you got to understand is that's a DNR thing. MUCC and DNR, they work together, but they're separate, right? Amy, can you explain that relationship there briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. We're an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization. Certainly, we do work with the DNR and the Natural Resources Commission and the legislature from time to time. We also argue with them, as family members would. So we don't have control over their decisions, but certainly, and that's again the benefit of membership is to join us, explain the issue, and then we can go to the right person in the DNR and explain that and work on your behalf to get those kinds of things changed. And we are willing to do so. So if it's an issue about accessibility, certainly we are open to those kinds of conversations because we do believe that the woods and waters should be accessible to all, and we want to do that to the best of our abilities.
Amy, it is always a pleasure to have you to join me. I'd like to continue on if we can do this, 4 times a year, every quarter, if you're open to it, something or whatever fits your schedule. But I'd love to get you back on.
Yeah. I love it. It's always the fastest, 40 minutes in my week for sure. But I love the challenge and I love the opportunity to talk about MUCC and all the things we're doing.
And the website, mucc.org, mucc.org. Amy, we'll let you go. You and I will talk again soon. All right.
Very good. Thank
All
you.
right.
Good
Always
night.
a pleasure. Have a good night. All right. Amy Trotter of MUCC. Brad Dupuis says, great job, Amy. It's interesting, Brad. Thank you for making that comment because this leads me into the rundown for who's on the Outdoor Magazine radio show this week. My first guest on the show is Mr. Angler Quest, Quest, Mr. Angler Quest, Brad Dupuis. He talks about the new prototype. You saw pictures, you saw video. I posted on the Facebook page and I posted on my Instagram feed. Brad will be at the Woods and Water show in Imlay City, not this weekend, Labor Day weekend, but next weekend. He will be there with that boat at the Freeway Sports Shop booth. So Brad is my first guest. If you want to see pictures or video, jump over to my Facebook page or Instagram feed, but wait till we're done with this. Then Mark Torregrossa, Michigan's meteorologist, answers the question that I should have posed to Jim Felgenauer right away. Why are the maples turning red already? He also gives us a preview of what the fall weather could look like. In hour number 2, Chad Stewart of the DNR joins me to talk about deer hunting regulations, the NRC, EHD. We now have confirmed cases of EHD in the southern part of the state. Then Tom Campbell from Woods and Water News jumps on to remind us about the big outdoor weekend next weekend. Brad Dupuis is going to be there from Angler Quest. Paul Perone of Versus Skins is going to be there. Andy Weiss from Truck Trolley is going to be there. Rich Krazan of Killer Food Plots is going to be there. A lot of our friends are going to be there. Then our Ask Avery question, Jason Covington, a longtime listener from Indiana, asked me, Avery, why do you call Johnny Bowler the Bear Whisperer? And I answer the question. In hour number 3, we switch gears completely. And I talk with Todd Williams of the Bayport Fish Company about commercial fishing and what that's all about. Brandon, that's an excellent question. We as hunters can't shoot sandhills, but farmers can kill them on crop damage permits, but then they can't eat them. They got to leave them lay out there. It makes no sense at all. And we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire, Dixie Dave Miner. She is awesome. Everybody loves Amy Trotter. It's just because she's just so nice and cute and bubbly, and she's just so good at not offending everybody. But I'll tell you what, you want to see I wouldn't want Amy mad at me because I don't think she would show it. But if she wanted to get something done, she can get things done in Lansing. Okay. If you have any questions, because Brad Dupuy is standing by here, if you have any questions about that Angler Quest prototype, we got a few minutes, just a couple of minutes. You could ask Brad right now as well. I will be posting more video of Are the perch in the skinny water? Linda, I have heard 2 reports of perch, a decent perch bite, and one of them is indeed right on the edge of the holy water. I mean, the skinny water. Another report I've heard is out in the sailboat buoys. Johnny says, bears are on the baits. That's because you're the bear whisperer. Scott Hand, good question. Brad, what power plant, being outboard motor, is going on that AQ, and how big? The AQ you looked at is a 26 footer, Tim. It's 26 by 8.5. 26 feet by 8.5 feet. And Brad, what motor are you going to put on that thing? Well, if you're going to freeway, it's probably not going to be a Merc. What are you going to put on that thing? And how big can you go? With a new tube design, can you go 350, 400? 300 Suzuki digital throttle and shift. How big can you go, Brad? Johnny is the wolf yeller. He's the bear whisperer and the wolf yeller. Paul Phillips, how fast is it? Paulie, I know, well, we don't know yet because it hasn't been in the water. Paul, I got a voicemail from you today. I started to listen to it, got interrupted. I'm sorry I didn't respond. I will check that out. 300 is max on a 26 footer. And and by the way, Brad Dupuy is going to join us for Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch on September 18th. Paul Phillips, are you going to be able to make it? I know you said you would if you could. Do you know what your schedule is yet, Paulie? Craig says a nice upgrade would be to add a sonar unit on the back rail by the live. Well, all right. I know Brad is always looking. See, that's the thing about Brad and Angler Quest, and the new Angler Quest, QUEST. He's looking for input from anglers. Probably 40, Brad, with a 300. Linda says, you'll be in New Mexico. Sorry to hear that. We will miss you. Linda, I have a 300 horse Merc on my 26 footer. And actually I was getting like 36, 37 on mine with clean tubes and no weight in it. My fully loaded cruising speed's like 20 miles an hour. I think if I had a different prop on there, I could probably get more speed, but I really like the prop I have because I control down real nice and slow. Johnny says, I won't be able to go so we can have an Andy's dinner after I shoot my bear. I told you, I'm not going into Andy's. I'm afraid to go into Andy's because I know if I walk into Andy's, I'm coming out horizontal. Brad says a very common addition at the dealer level, Craig, is adding a graph at the stern. So that's not something the factory would do, but your dealer could do it. And Craig, I know you actually bought your Angler Quest from the guys at Freeway. Thank you, Tony. Reservation number to call for reservations, 989-343-0892, 989-343-0892. Craig, do you have a live scope on yours yet? Brad, are you going to put a live scope? 44-ish for top speed if propped for top speed. Again, Linda, if we're propping them for, you can prop a boat for speed, you can prop it for trolling, or you can hit a happy medium. I believe that mine is, I consider mine propped for trolling, which is what I want. Ed Bolanowski, I'll drive you back to your room after Andy's. Live scope next year. All right, my friends. As Amy said, that was indeed a very fast Wednesday Night Live tonight, wasn't it? For those of you who do not have power, I hope that you get it soon. Oh, I can't hear my levels. Why is that? Just going to have to fake it. I hope you get your power back soon. Walleye Hunter Charters gets 40 on his 26-footer. Skinny Water. I don't need to go very far. Good point. I don't need to go very far. Thank you, Cap. I couldn't agree with you more. All right, my friends. My name is Mike Avery. This is Wednesday Night Live. It's something I do every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. The radio show is called Outdoor Magazine. My email address is mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. My website is mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Again, if you want to join us for a Wednesday Night Live in person at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch, they are absolutely a lot of fun. The food is great. The beer is cold if you are so inclined. Call for reservations, 989-343-0892, 989-343-0892. Love to see you there. Have a great Labor Day weekend, my friends. Thanks for joining me on this edition of Wednesday Night Live.